Hey everyone, welcome back to Kumar Drawing Studio. I was read all of your comments on the comments column that you guys want to me using my own voice, so I decided to start using my voice as your request. I would like to say thank you to my friend that helped me as a dabber in the previous video. So in this video I would like to show you on how to paint a deer using watercolor technique. The materials that I'm going to use for this painting are Winsor & Newton watercolor paper 300 GSM, also my silver black velvet paint brushes, mop brush number 1, Winsor & Newton watercolor, a glass of water, also tape to stick the edges of the paper. Then we will need a pencil to make an initial sketch outline and an eraser to lighten it before you start painting. The source of the materials link will be listed in the description down below. Alright, without any further ado, let's get straight into it. As you can see, here I got the sketch outline of the deer. And now I'm going to rub the sketch line with an eraser. I like to sketch very thinly, so when I put watercolor I won't see this gray graphite lines visible because I don't want to see any sketch appear when it's applied watercolor on the lighter side. So let's get to the first part of this tutorial. The first thing that I'm going to do is to create the first color layer. So here I'm gonna pick up some orange, yellow and ochre. So to make basic blocks, I usually use colors that tend to be brights and lights. In order to avoid a coloring trouble, I can easily fix or erase it using clean water. I blend it together and make a very transparent color. Then I dab to in the middle of the sketch line. Here I use a silver black velvet brush number 4. Move to the head, dab carefully and try not to cross the sketch lines. You can see that the color I use is very transparent. I switch to the larger brush. This is mop brush number 1, so this will make it easier to block the paint on the stomach. Now I'm going to make more color stroke again for block the hind right leg. So I'm making a color mixture of burnt sienna, ochre and reddish orange. Still using the light color consistency as before. I move to horns part. As you can see, the outline sketch of the horns branch looks so thin, so I have to be careful to dab it. Pay attention into the light color consistency, make sure you don't miss any small areas. If I'm not sure where to add the water, sometimes I tilt my head sideways to see which part of the paper is shiny cause still wet and which part that looks dry. Now, I will continue working on the neck. So here I add cobalt blue and cerulean blue colors to the mixture. Then I entered with slow dab here. I used the sharp tip of the silver black velvet brush number 2 and moved like a sharp zigzag up and down, leaving a bright color on the top. Continue to map the mid-tone colors and leave the base color block layers for the brighter area. Keep going with the same technique. It's mapping the core shadow, mid-tone, and leaving the highlights area to be like this. So here I have mapped the dark and lights area, and now I will continue to map the core shadow, mid-tone, and highlights on the hind legs. So to create a realistic deer painting, I have combined many values to paint it, such as composition, proportion, shape, lightness, contrast, saturation, and others that support to make this painting look realistic. I can say that the composition is one of the most important things that make this painting looks good. So here, this composition looks pleasing to the eyes because it's placed in the middle with a blurry background. not too sad or not too big. However, this composition is not the only one of the griefs of every composition in realistic painting. Taking a good composition could be variety, whether the point of object in the center, slightly sideways or in other position. Usually it depends on the supporting object of this focal point. Okay, now I'm going to work on the head. I've changed the camera position so you can watch it easily how I do the details in the following process. The darkest parts are on the top, bottom, and the areas close to the mouth and nose, so gradually we will lead there. I proceed to stack the darker layers and fade the lighter parts. I keep the paint damp to make it easier to create a smooth gradient. In fact, watercolor can be used in a more controlled way to achieve realism and very similar colors. When you want to get realism coloring, it is important that you define the color range or value of your subject. Logically, the color of this deer is brown, but if we look closely, we will find that the colors contained on it could be variety. As you can see now that the head of this deer has a brownish color, but in the mouth and the neck has a slightly bluish color. So we have to look carefully with the color by looking the lighting and shadows. You have to do working on the lightest color in the painting process, so that the colors will be served to map out what colors will be placed. And if you make a mistake at the point and put the paint in the wrong area, you can most likely wipe the paint off with wet tissue because the paint isn't too dark. Then sometimes, I work on some of the main areas of the darkest tones to set the upper and lower bounds of the tonal range of the painting. It really helps when working on the midtones. Once it's darkened, I can go back to the lightest color and adjust it, then to a darker color again and so on, building up the coat of paint until everywhere has the right color. So you can see that when we try to color match while we are painting, it's potentially really tricky until we've got all the colors in place in the painting. And as we can paint everywhere at once, I believe it's best to work in layers, building up our paints gradually so that we can adjust for a tone and hue as we go. We can work on our light tones, dark tones, and mid-tones before going into phase of tonal adjustment, where making an adjustment to one area usually requires us to make an adjustment to another. As you practice observing your subject closely, you will start to see that there's a lot more going on with color than first meets the eye. Let's get back to the part of the horn. To make a realistic horn, we must pay attention to its character. Different from fur character on their body, the horn has a character that looks soft or hard and star the object. We can also see from the lighting that is generated like there is a flash in the most bright spotlight. Therefore, we should often pay attention to the reference photo and observing carefully in order to get proper color and character of the horns accurately. If you want to see more other tutorials, you can join on my Patreon site. There's a full-length real-time tutorial with voiceover and also sketch outline and reference image which will be included for you. So you can follow this tutorial and use my sketch to get a really accurate sketch before you paint with watercolors. After I work on midtones, you will find out 3 parts of color. Those are: the lightest part is highlight tones, the middle one belongs to midtones, and the darkest part is core shadow. So I combine those color tones harmonically, and as a result in the object getting more realistic and looks alive and natural. Okay, here's the form of deer that I have painted. So I purposely didn't make the tip of the right front leg and the left hind leg because the leg be covered by grass. So I have a real-time painting tutorial of this deer which is about 2 hours long with voiceover. If you are interested in seeing more about the trick and technique that I use, then make sure you find that on my Patreon page by clicking the link on the description down below. Thank you very much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below, subscribe, and also click the notification bell to get a notification when I upload a new video. And don't forget to follow my social media that I put the link in the description down below. See you on the next video.